Okay, what is
Okay,
the
so
topic of this?
okay, what is the topic? Don't
I
let this
said
group stress you out.
yes. Hmm.
Okay. This is about, we've heard some feedback. When we started this group, it was like, I don't know, 3 years ago. It was very small for a very long time. It has grown consistently, but it's really grown in the last year, which I think is normal for all Facebook groups. They're all getting quite large. And we just wanted to do a post because we've heard some feedback about our group and our philosophy and maybe how you should use it if it's stressing you out. So,
Hmm.
Farah, what is your overall philosophy for our group, for the high school years, for everything you want to talk about?
For everything, good grief. I guess my
Everything in the
thought,
world.
my thought about this is that, there's a lot of like, it just can be stressful to see what other people are doing. It's both inspirational and
Yeah.
informative because you can be like, oh, I never thought of doing it that way. What a great idea. Or, oh, I was
Yeah.
not aware of that resource. That's awesome. And also get your
Yeah.
questions answered so that you get this preview like, oh, that's how you do a school profile. Like, so there's lots of, it's so useful. But then also it can be like, wait, your 13-year-old is already doing what? Wait, your kid has how many dual enrollment credits? Wait, what colleges prefer that, like, I think that it can also like ratchet up your your
Mm-hmm.
stress level. And the primary thing that I keep trying to tell people is like, your goals are not necessarily the person who just posted's goals, and their kids goals, your kids goals, they could be on different planets from each other. And I think that you have to keep that in mind. Also, their resources and your resources may be completely different because of geography, like different states. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
really cheap to do dual enrollment, sometimes it's really expensive. And some
Yeah.
families just have more resources than others. And so
Yep.
I think that's like a major part of like what you can do and what's available to you. Um, and so that's part of it too. Like there's, you
There's a
just,
lot
everybody's
to
got their own
it.
kid. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say that everyone's kid is different, first of all. Even within your family, all your kids are different. If you have a bunch of kids, you know that. And your kids' needs are very different from someone else's kids' needs, and what your kid can do is different from what other kids can do. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I always tell everyone, and I've said this many times in all our lives, and I say to our clients, is that homeschool with blinders on is really helpful.
Hmm.
You can pop into our group. There's a lot of good resources. I mean, I think it's good for that, but I definitely wouldn't be in it too long, especially if you feel yourself and your own anxiety getting, retched up. And I would say too, for anyone who may be getting a little older and maybe going through perimenopause or menopause, your anxiety can get a lot worse during that time. And I say that because I know it as someone
Hmm.
who's lived it.
I think we
That's
know. Me too.
face Facebook groups are not the best for that stage
Yeah.
of life, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't have Facebook on my phone. I don't have In fact, I was going to pull up our questions, but I don't have Facebook on anything but my computer. And I don't go to it a whole lot because it just stresses me out a bit. So keep your own mental health in line, in top of your mind so that you're not stressing yourself out. And also don't stress your kid out
Yeah.
because
Um,
there seems to be lots of people doing tons of things and tons of dual enrollment, tons of APs, and all these amazing summer programs. And they have letters of rec and they're ready to apply to all these amazing colleges. Last thing, real quick, is there are so many amazing colleges out there that, I mean, just so many really wonderful schools that have a much easier admit rate than these top tippy tops. I mean, I
yeah.
love some of them. I mean, I absolutely love some of them.
Yeah. I think to me that's like one of the most fun parts of this job is,
Yeah.
learning which schools have what new programs and
Yeah.
hearing from students who are really successful there. And it's not always where you would think, and you kind of have to get your head away from, that and be willing to kind of do some research,
Yeah.
figure out, what's the right fit for your kid.
I mean,
Um,
cost comes into it too. So, I mean, we're very aware of that. But, there's a lot of great little state schools too, or bigger state schools and honors programs that make it feel a little more intimate. There's lots of different choices. Dual enroll, I mean, community college for families who have to go that route is fine. You don't have to start in high school.
yeah. I think it also, I mean, the other thing though is that our philosophy for our group, and we are gonna, if folks have questions,
Yeah,
you can put
I'll
them on the
post
video
them.
and we'll get to
Yeah.
them, and we're gonna try to get to the other question. We will get to the other questions that
Hmm.
people put beforehand. But I think like our philosophy for this group though is that homeschoolers can go to college, homeschoolers can aim for, more selective schools too. And
Yeah, definitely.
and that that there's a huge value in the 4-year college experience. And
Yeah.
there are other groups that address other approaches, who don't see value in the 4-year college experience. And I would sort of say, if that's your family and that's your sort of focus, that's fine. But also, like, and we're sort of aware of that, and aware that sometimes, community college is like the best way for a student to start, or that some students, would benefit from going into the trades,
No,
or into the
definitely.
military, or,
Yeah.
all kinds of things, that those are great options too. They're
Hmm.
just not and sometimes, we see questions about those, and that's great, but like, that's not the focus of where we're kind of coming from. Like, our
We feel
focus
very
is,
strongly of the 4-year experience
yeah,
because we've
exactly.
seen what it's done for our own students, our own kids.
Yeah, for our kids, and also
Yeah.
for clients and
Yeah.
other young people. It just,
Yeah.
it does something really great for young people to get away from home, to live with other young people, to have to be, autonomous, but to do it in a sort of structured way with some supports, is big in launching young people into careers and lives. Now, cost is also, has to play a role in, what you can afford and where you can send your kid. But the
Right.
cost of college is actually plateaued. And so, you just have to be willing to look at a lot of options and figure out what those are, and where you'll get the best price point in order to figure out what's going to be affordable. Um, Hopefully. And again,
Yeah.
we're aware that lots of
There's lots
situations.
of different circumstances.
Yeah.
We're just talking as general as we can.
Yep, exactly.
Um, so basically, I think what we're saying here, and tell me if I'm, is that we really like to highlight the 4-year experience for all students. And a lot of families are trying to get this dual enrollment credits early, or they're trying to collect a bunch of things, and they're just trying, and that's not our focus. And
Well,
we
and
really don't recommend that too much. I mean, some dual enrollment is great, but not like the whole focus.
yeah, I think there's this whole, like, I think if the focus is to get to that 4-year experience, having a credit cushion is really good, whether you get
Yeah,
that through some CLEP exams, AP exams, dual
dual
enrollment
enrollment.
credits, whatever. Like, then that's actually really useful. There's no reason for most students not to pursue one of those paths, or maybe a little bit of a few different ones for at least a few credits. It can be kind of helpful. But, it if if getting that sort of full college experience, um, is something that's accessible financially, and it is for a lot of families. I think more than realize it. If you're willing to sort of look at the full slate of options, and figure out which option's right for you, um, then I would sort of say that, like, that's not the focus necessarily. Like, you want to use those things, those classes, to get access to other stuff,
Hmm.
whether it's like a richer experience, or an in-person lab, or someone who can write letters of recommendation. Like, you want to use it to get the things that are
Yeah,
actually core to your students' learning experience, that you shouldn't be ignoring that. And that home-based coursework is still also really strong. Like, you want to have some
a mix.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
a nice balance, a nice mix. Plus, dual enrollment AP and that can help with admissions to colleges,
Exactly.
and it's
Yes.
outside verification. So
And
that
well,
sometimes is helpful.
how you use it means that, because if the focus is, oh, my kid has to get an associate's, my kid has to get an associate's,
Yeah.
at a lot of community colleges, when you're getting that associate's degree, like they have these like, little 1 credit things like, oh, you have to take this study skills class. Oh, you have
Right.
to take this, preparing for transferring class. You have to
Right.
take this. Like it's, they have these little requirements that have zero impact, on the actually what you need for admissions. And then additionally, they funnel kids into like, okay, you have to take all these sort of gen ed classes.
Yeah.
And so then it's harder to get your balance. You get stuck taking everything at the community college. And so you're not getting that same breadth of sort of stuff. And you also can't build on it. Like most students don't take like, oh, okay, I'm going to go really deep and take 2 different languages,
Yeah.
or I'm going to max out and take every single computer science class that you offer, in order to really go in depth into an area of interest. And so, because you don't have time to do that, you have to take a history class and a biology class and
Yeah.
like, and so you get stuck in that. But those are the things that actually can serve a student from dual enrollment in getting into college. So the admissions is what's really useful there.
Yeah. I'm listening to you. I'm just answering
I
something
know
in
you're
chat.
looking at the questions.
No, no, someone couldn't find the link to join it.
Oh, okay.
So I put that in chat and I may put it in our group too, but I think it should be there.
It's when I go to our group, it just shows up. So
Okay. All right. So
if
then
you
I put it
put
directly in chat too.
yeah, put it in the chat for the group and just say it's streaming in our group. Yeah.
I put in chat for the event.
Okay.
Yeah. I,
Perfect.
okay. We will also
Facebook
share the
events
recording.
are,
So
yeah, and Facebook events are so confusing. Why are they like this?
I don't know if anyone had seen us a half hour before this event started, they would have really laughed.
I know. For a moment, we were worried that we had accidentally streamed ourselves, and we weren't even sure what we talked about. And at one point, Jill said, like, I have to get up and use the bathroom, and I was like, oh my god, did any
I
of
did,
this?
and then I had to drink tea, and then I
And
was
you're
talking
like,
about
let me go
chocolate.
get a tea. I'm like, are we? I just want to make sure.
Then I complained about my son eating all my chocolate.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, so there was a lot there. There was a lot. Okay, real quick, I had some questions.
Okay, go.
Well, first of all, is there anything else you want to talk about with our philosophy?
I think that's it. Anything else you want to add?
Um, I would add that just keep in mind that everyone's situation is very different and not to feel bad if you have a limited income, if you're a single parent, if your students have mental health challenges, if your students have physical health challenges. You just meet their needs as best you can and take everything with a grain of salt. You should,
Yeah.
I mean, I homeschooled for high school, all 3 of my kids a little differently. Oh, thank you. No, I'm just saying that one had physical health challenges, one had some mental health challenges, and one was just no, he was kind of
Eating
different.
all your
My
chocolate,
youngest, he
eating it
was
out of
eating
house and
all my
home.
chocolate during COVID. During COVID. So they all had their own challenges, and I met them in lots of different ways, which we'll talk about, especially because people had questions about gap year. I had a kid do a gap year, a 5th year. I had a kid do a 5th year. So lots of
Yeah.
different paths.
Yeah,
So we'll
I
talk
also
about
have a
that.
gap year kid, though I don't even know if
Double
he's made
gap
it out of
year.
college. Yeah,
Yeah.
he had a double gap year so
I
far.
call that the double gap year. We'll see if we're going for triple.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll talk about those questions in just a second, but we're getting ready. Everyone's thinking about planning for next year. We're heading into planning season. Homeschoolers love to plan. I loved
Yes.
it when mine were younger. I would
Did
overthink
too.
it. I would buy lots of curriculum that I didn't need. So, yeah. So, what's your advice as everyone's heading into planning season with teenagers?
I mean, I feel like, the 2 things that I think are the most practical to know is like, when people are worried that like, oh, things are going to fill up, things are going to fill up. There's literally only like, I would say less than half a dozen classes, like individual classes, not even just providers, that typically
Right.
fill up these days. I mean,
I think it was
providers
COVID, they
during
filled up so
COVID, it
fast.
got a little
Yeah.
crazy, but
And that's what made people worry.
Yeah, but and
Yeah.
also the providers that were doing really well have expanded, and so they just have more classes and more sections. I
Yeah.
know that's the case with like Well Trained Mind Academy and AIM
Yeah.
Academy.
Yeah.
And some of the, I think Wilson Hill also, like some of these, some of that's a Christian one. They just added more teachers and more sections for certain things.
Right.
And so now the demand has slacked off. The sections are still there. It's usually okay. Now there are a few things, but you don't need to register like right away. The other thing is that some providers don't announce yet. Like, there are
Yeah.
these smaller providers like Online G3 or Rise Out or like some of these little places like I know Learning Outside the Box, which we like to recommend. Like, it's a bunch
Love
of these.
learning outside the box.
Yeah, they're great. Like, she's a great
Yeah.
teacher. So, some
Yeah.
of these little providers, they're not even announced yet. And they won't be on March 1st when like a lot of the bigger places are opening.
Yeah.
So it just sort of, room to think about these things. The same thing with like dual enrollment schedules. If that's part of your, like, just leave time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
that's
okay.
just my practical advice, which also is hopefully like a de-stressor.
My practical advice is to think about the schedule for your kid and make sure it's not a ton of APs or a ton of dual enrollment. Balance it out with these high input, low output courses or courses at home, either that you do with them or that they do on their own, so that there is breathing room there and they have a chance to just be teenagers, which is really important.
Yeah. Self-study courses
Self
that use
study.
things like great courses as a backbone,
Mm-hmm.
things where
Give credit for anything where they self study too. I mean, just give them credit.
give them credit for those things, or
Yeah.
half credit or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just, yeah, leave
And,
space.
I would also say I started taking their input, when they were 13, 14 for a lot of this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
welcomed it, but
Hmm.
yeah. And if they don't want if they have nothing to say and they're happy with anything, that's fine too. But some
Junior
students really like
year,
to plan.
live teacher junior year, even if you've never done it
Definitely.
before, even if it's a slight stretch to your budget. Now, if it's just an impossible stretch to your budget, that's another issue. And sometimes local courses can be a little cheaper on that front. Actually, that's something we don't talk about as much on this group because
Yeah.
we're national, but local co-ops can
Yeah.
be a really great, especially for like electives and smaller court. Like, a lot of the time they're not as intensive. There's
And to
some
get a letter of rec.
community. Yeah, and then you can get a letter
Yeah.
of rec, and usually it's cheaper. Like, I mean, just a number of reasons to work
Sometimes there's
that.
some more affordable courses on Outschool where they're live. And if you get to know the teacher, if your student's a person who can really interact, you might be able to get a letter right there.
Yeah,
I do that sometime with my book clubs.
yeah, yeah. All things to
Just
keep in
think
mind.
outside the box because a letter of recommendation or two really helps homeschool applicants when it comes time to applying to college.
Specifically from a teacher, because a lot of the time they'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, my kid
Yeah.
has the scoutmaster and my kid has the job
Yeah.
person and
Which
my
is
kid has.
great too.
Yeah.
That's great too, but you need an academic one for homeschooling. They
a lot of
really like
a
it in
lot of
admissions.
schools, you specifically need an academic one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep that in mind.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else with planning? What's been in our group lately that's been stressing people out? There's been a lot, and I'm just trying to think if there's any other. I hope we're helping everyone just kind of take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. At the end of the day, it's
Yeah,
going to be okay.
I think
It's
it's
easy to
definitely,
say when,
it's shifted to
oh, go
planning
ahead.
for next year, which is always like a
Yeah.
kind of time. Yeah.
Yeah. What's this? What's that? Do you have that? Do you have
Hmm.
this? I think one thing I would say that's really important before we get to questions is there's no perfect plan at all. You can do everything that you think someone else has done and their kid got into, Yale or something, and you can do all those things and it may not turn out that way at all. So there's no perfect plan. There's not, you don't need to join 20 Facebook groups and, ours isn't even that bad. There's some out there that are just quite. I'm in some Facebook group. I don't know how I got in it. Someone recommended it for admissions. Um, People who work on college admissions, and they are trying to recruit parents to sign up their 6-year-old to start planning for college. And it's like, uh-uh. Let them be kids.
Oh
Let your
my
middle schoolers
gosh.
be tweens. Let your high schoolers be teens, and balance
Ye-
out their
I
schedule.
mean, we take it. We do have eighth grade to college now
Yeah.
as a package, but honestly, a lot of our
We're
advice,
just doing a lot of planning in the
yeah,
beginning.
it's just, and also, planning for just homeschool classes, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we're doing, we're just like, okay, hey, it just will make it easier if you get this foreign language thing done now. Like, it'll make it easier if you do this. We're not really like, oh my gosh, you have to do this or like it's not like
Hmm.
that. I think we end up, honestly, I think, we end up encouraging families to do more extracurriculars and more
Yeah.
electives,
Yeah.
so the kids can explore some stuff.
Ninth grade is a really great year to explore a lot of
Yeah.
different topics to see what you're interested in.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. I do not want parents and families stressed out. It is not my goal at the end of the day.
And yeah, same. I feel like some of it is inevitable.
Yeah.
And it happens. I think it's really hard to make junior year not stressful. It's just
Hmm.
hard.
Yeah.
Um, and the beginning of senior year, it's just really hard for those
I
not
mean,
to
you're
be
applying to
stressful.
all, yeah.
Yeah.
But we
But
don't want to add extra stress.
no, 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 no.